Is my screen visible?
No, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. I didn't present. So yesterday we finished chapter number 1, and in chapter number 2 we were we have to study pranayam. So before that, anybody who can tell that what we have studied yesterday? In chapter number 1, what did we study? Okay, I will tell. In chapter
Ma'am, I can revise the content that we did yesterday. So we did chapter 1, which is about teaching in ancient times. So
Yes.
the teaching in ancient times was basically with persistent questioning and showing reverence or respect to the teacher. And there were kind of arguments between the teacher and the student, but there was no bitterness between them. There was no fixed time for the classes, no certification, no exams, nothing. And being with the teacher in the residential setup was the kind of environment that teaching was happening. The idea was to study together and not to compare with each other. And the education was free, and the teacher always expected that his students should have that superiority and command over the subjects. He never had any kind of feeling that my students should not be on par with me or ahead of me. So the teaching was basically oral, and the students learned from the content of the lessons as well as through their personal conduct. And there was a difference between the ancient teaching method and modern teaching method. So in the ancient teaching setup, there were limited students, but in the modern teaching way, there are unlimited number of students. Ancient teaching, it was not time bound. It was a holistic development, and it was mostly based on ideological quality, which that mattered. And students belong to particular varnas in the society. Not everybody was entitled to education. And in modern education, as I said, it was there are unlimited number of students. It is time bound, and the purpose is very clear. So the purpose is to get a certificate and the profession in whatever profession that one wants to take up. And then there are assessments and there are examinations, evaluations, and things like that. And here in modern education, there's no class differences. Everybody is entitled to get educated.
Very good, Ushaji. And in chapter 2, what were the 6 classifications that we studied?
Yeah, the six classifications were six misconceptions about yoga.
Yes, first
The six
misconception.
misconceptions were that yoga is not meant for ordinary people. Yoga is only meant for a select few. That is a misconception. So yoga is meant for everybody. That is what we need to understand. And yoga is associated with the idea of the supernatural or linked with miracles. This is also a misconception. So it is pure based on our sadhana and not based on miracles and things like that. Yoga is equated with mysticism, black magic, or various types of mortifications, which is not. And yoga is a system of therapy which can cure all diseases. This is a big misconception. And it might cure diseases, but it is not just restricted or limited to curing diseases. Yoga is a system of philosophy that deals with metaphysical theories about universe. That is also not true. And yoga is just a system of exercise, which is also not true. So these were the six misconceptions that we studied yesterday.
Okay, very good. And anybody else who will tell the classifications of yoga? Anybody?
I can do
Okay.
it, ma'am. So classification of yogic practices were 6 types. We studied that there are asanas, pranayama, mudra bandha, kriya, meditation, and attitudinal practice. In
Nice.
asanas, we learned that there are 3 types: meditative, cultural, and relaxative. In meditative asanas, we learned that it is done mostly in a sitting position, such as Padmasana, Siddhasana, or Swastikasana, where the head, neck, and trunk should be straight. That is the requirement in meditative asanas. And for cultural asanas, which are also called as promotional asanas, there are various kinds of postures like standing, sitting, supine, prone, and things like that. So it results in toning of our musculature. It also gives us flexibility and strong spinal and strengthens our spinal muscles, and also works on our vital organs, stimulates the marma points. And relaxative asanas are done in the lying position and just meant to give rest to the body and mind.
Okay. Very good. Let's continue. Second classification, which is pranayams. So in pranayams, there are 3 phases. First one is controlled inspiration, which we call purak. And second is controlled retention, which is kumbhak, when we hold the breath. And third is controlled expiration, rechak. These are the 3 phases of pranayam, and it is useful in higher practices like meditation. We first, when we do pranayam, then our mind and body prepares itself for meditation. So first pranayam is done, then meditation. Helps to gain control over the respiratory impulse and the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system, it is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is basically the when in sympathetic brain nervous system is active, then our heart rate and oxygen levels and uh, heart rate and blood rate, these blood pressure, these increases. And basically it's the flight and fight response in sympathetic nervous system. And in parasympathetic, it when we are in rest and digest condition, and we when we conserve energy, then it means that our parasympathetic nervous system is active. Then holding of breath for a prolonged and comfortable period of time is essential. So pranayam is not just inhaling and exhaling. Yes, if you are a beginner, then it's you should not hold your breath. You just do inhalation and exhalation. And what's the ratio for that inhalation and exhalation? It's 1:2. For only for the initial practitioners, they should not hold their breath. But when you practice regularly, then you need to hold the breath. Next is bandhas and mudras. So what are bandhas and mudras? The locks and holds of the semi-voluntary and involuntary muscles, like in Udyan Bandhe, as shown in the picture. The abdominal muscles, we control these muscles, we hold these muscles. They remove any blockages of vital organs, improve circulation, and also gives emotional stability. This is the benefit of bandhas and mudras. And bandhas are they bind and channelize a particular nervous activity in a particular direction. Like when we hold the mool bandh or we hold udyan bandh, then the energy flows upwards. These are the mudras that are used in pranayam. Bandhas are the mudras that we hold in pranayam when we do pranayam. For example, we did Bhastrika. Then after that, when we are holding the breath after doing 10 to 15 exhalation, inhalation, then after that we hold the breath. And during that holding of breath, uh, we do Udyan Bandh. Then that bandh during the pranayam is called as mudra. Some asanas are also called mudras. For example, Paschimottanasana. It's also described in mudras, not as the same name, but with different name, but the procedure of doing it is same. Kriyas.
Ma'am, can you just go back once?
Okay.
Can you read out the last sentence, because I'm
Okay, it
not
is
able to see it.
some asanas are also called mudras. Like,
Okay, ma'am. Okay, yeah, that's good.
like Pashini mudra is same as halasana. So there are some asanas which are same as mudras. Kriyas. So there are 6 kriyas that are described in this book. Shat kriyas: dhoti, basti, neti, tratak, noli, kapalbhati. These are the 6 kriyas. Reasons involved in cleansing are nasopharyngeal, the area the reason in our nose and pharynx. This region is cleaned, and orocranial, mouth and cranial region, gastroesophageal region, the area of our stomach and esophagus, anorectal, anus and rectum region, intestinal region. So all these regions are cleaned in the kriyas, that these shut kriyas. Modes of purification are air, water, friction, and manipulating movements. Next, they increase the range of adaptability of the tissues and raise the threshold of their reactivity. So when we, for example, when we do Vaman Kriya for the first time, then it's difficult for us to do that Kriya. But when we practice it regularly, then our uh, threshold reactivity is raised. It increases with the time. And in the same way, when we do neti, then in the starting, it's very difficult for us to do sutra neti, but later on it becomes easy for us. This is the thing: bring control over different reflexes and establish psychological balance. So kriyas also bring psychological balance.
Ma'am, can you go back?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
here regions involved in cleansing. Should we also try to match, like Dauti is for gastroesophageal, right?
Yeah.
Bhasti is for anorectal. Can we think it that way?
Yes, it is for
And
that.
also for intestines, right?
Yeah.
Or uh, should it only be matched to intestine?
Noli is for gastro esophagus. Noli is for gastric, we may
Intestine.
call. Yes. Yes, intestine and gastric both.
And orocranial is that orocranial, ma'am? Cranial. Orocranial.
Cranial, yeah. Neti,
Orocranial is for
neti.
Kapalbhati.
Yes, neti also. Because neti works on the chakra in our forehead,
Yeah.
Agya chakra. So,
So
yes.
there are more than one regions where these kriyas are useful.
Not more than one reason. Yeah, like these are not given in the sense that only this can do this, but it is commonly given that the all these kriyas, dhoti, like dhoti has, like dhoti doesn't impacts on anorectal region and intestinal region. Sorry, sorry, gastroesophageal region dhoti, and so this is the one reason. And just a second. So this is the one reason on which dhoti. So these are the common reasons that are that are given here. But all these effects on different. Uh, did you get it?
Kind of, ma'am.
Okay, anybody who can explain it more? Can you please ask your question again?
No, my question was about the regions where the kriyas are effective.
These are the reasons that are given here are the common reasons. It's not particularly given that only basti can do affects this reason and neti affects this reason, but these are commonly given.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Fifth is meditation occupies highest position in yogic practices. So meditation is the highest practice that we do. It is a great tranquilizer, develop internal awareness. So meditation reduces the tension in the stress in our body, in our mind. So it is a great tranquilizer. It starts from the withdrawal of senses. My voice is repeating. It starts from the withdrawal of the senses from external objects to the complete oblivion of the external environment. So there are innumerable techniques of meditation, like there are Isha that by Isha Foundation by Sadhguru. There is Isha Kriya by Vipassana meditation is by Buddha. So there are different techniques by different gurus, teachers. There are innumerable techniques. It is a process of absorption in which the individual tries to turn his attention to dwell upon a single object, sound, concept, or experience. So should we move to the next slide?
Just give a few seconds, ma'am.
Okay. Should we move?
Yeah.
Sixth is attitudinal practice. Attitudinal training practices. Technically, these attitudinal practices are called yamas and niyamas, self-imposed restrictions. Nobody is forcing us to do these practices. These are self-imposed practices, self-imposed restrictions to govern one's behavior to form a particular attitudinal pattern. When we follow, when we always speak truth, we repeat in our mind where when we say to ourselves that I have to speak truth always, then the particular pattern in our attitude, in our mind, in our behavior will be formed, and our behavior will change basis of all the yogic practices. So which uh, which which yogic practices are the basis of all yogic practices? It is these are attitude training practices. The nature of all yogic practices is psychophysical. So these not only all the yogic practices work on our body as well as our mind. Psychophysical nature. All yogic practices are complementary to each other. So all yogic practices that we do, these are complementary to each other. What does that mean? That these different kriyas, different practices, these the way of doing these practices is different, but they bring the similar effects. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next, chapter number 3. This is the this we have already saying that what we will study in this chapter. So 6 factors in teaching process. First, teaching, learning, teacher, student, subject of activity, and environment. Let's see these. The teaching is a part of the educational process. Education is a process of growth, development, and adding something new to one's experience. Two phases in educational process are teaching and learning. Factors involved in teaching. So these are the factors that we will study. Teaching. Teaching, a process involving methods. Teaching is a process in which methods are involved. Consist of organization and conduct of learning experience by the teacher. So the process of teaching is carried out by teacher. The teacher is the one who teaches. Next is learning. Learning is adjustment through actions. And who adjust through his actions? Who is
Learner or student.
yes, and who bring that adjustment, who helps the learner? Who is the one?
Teacher.
Yes, teacher. The next is teacher. Teacher directs the process of learning. An educator, teacher is an educator who leads out all that is the best in the situation. Teacher organizes and guides certain experiences of the individual under his leadership. So teacher acts as leader here. Next, fourth is student. Student is a person who is desirous of adjusting himself. Next is subject of activity. What is subject of activity? The content that a learner learns in the teacher teaches. Subject of activity. Content of learning. Environment is a place where teacher teaches and the learner learns. Class or situation in which the whole process is conducted, arranged by teacher. So the environment for the learning is arranged by teacher. Next is fifth is subject of activity. Oh, it's repeated, sorry. So these were the factors of teaching. 6 factors. Are these factors clear to you? Should we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next is scope of teaching. The purpose of teaching is to induce change in the student. And uh, student is the most important factors in the process of teaching learning. No teaching without learning. So if the students are not learning, then there is no point of teaching, and it's not even we can't even call it teaching. Teaching is an art as well as science. So how teaching is an art? Because because teaching cannot be reduced to a formula, and it is modified according to learner's need. So that's why teaching is an art. And why teaching is science? Teaching is science because it involves logical and systematic arrangement based on certain principles. The whole educational process involving teaching learning centers around the most important factor. So the most important factor in the process of learning and teaching is the student. The whole process revolves around student. Next slide. Methods of teaching. So as we discussed yesterday that there are two categories of teaching: instructional methods and practical skill method. Instructional methods are the classroom methods that we study, that we use in the class for theory subjects, and practical methods are the subjects like that we need in our physical education, and we need in the yoga centers, gymnastics. These the methods that are used in these areas are practical skill method. Okay. Next, classroom methods. So there
Ma'am,
are,
can you go back once?
okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Classroom methods. In, in classroom methods, the first method given is lecture method. So in lecture method, basically there is a lecturer, there's a teacher, and a lecture method is a teacher centered method in which teacher teaches, and there is less involvement on the side of student. And in recitation method, in recitation method, there is repeating what have been memorized. And in project method, that we used to prepare projects in our school also, so that was the project method. Laboratory method, like when we used to experiment in the science labs. And dramatic method, when different students are assigned. So, and in laboratory method, there is also a point that I missed, that theory, that we put theory into practice. That's what we used to do in our science labs. And dramatic methods are the method in which students are assigned different roles, and then the drama is played by those students. This used to be a way to learn. Group discussion method, groups can be small and large. And problem solving is the main thing in group discussion method. Then next is two approaches of teaching. First one is teacher centered, and second one is student centered. Teacher centered is the approach in which uh, teacher is active and the students learn passively. They are not active, like like in the lecture method. And this used to be the main method in the past, even in yoga. And student center is the one in which students are actively participating in the learning process. Then next is method of teaching must be compatible with the goals or outcomes expected. The teacher should know how a particular method he uses affects the student's learning ability. So teacher also plays role here. Methods, along with methods, teacher should know this art of how to use which method with which student, how to teach the student. Should we move?
Just give a few seconds.
Okay. So next is very important. These are the 7 basic methods of teaching according to this book, Teaching Methods for Yogic Practices. First one is lecture method. Lecture method is, this is the oldest method for formal teaching and valuable in presenting new information and synthesizing information from a wide variety of sources. More useful with mature student. Why is it more useful with mature students? Because those students who are immature, whose attention span is less, then they cannot attend the class attentively. Then they don't get benefit from this, because the involvement of student is less in this. And this is a teacher centered method. A lecture can be stimulating, interesting, and motivating to the students if the teacher prepares it properly. So it depends on teacher can make this lecture method interesting also, but it has some drawbacks, that it is a teacher centered method, and all the students, maybe students might not be interested in listening to what the teacher is saying. So these are also the drawbacks of this method has. Should we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Next is response to instruction method. So in response to instruction method, this is also a formal approach. This is also formal like the previous one, lecture method. And the teacher gives precise instructions before, after, or with a demonstration. For example, in a yoga class, when the teacher is giving instructions, then is demonstrating. So teacher can give before, either the teacher can give the instruction before demonstrating, or the teacher can give demonstrations along with the instructions. And it is also possible that teacher might give instructions later than before, but and before demonstration first, he will demonstrate first, and after that he give instructions, and all the students respond to the instructions in the same way. So all the students are, there is no individual preference, like one student is doing different. If one is not flexible enough, then there needs to be individual method for this. So we will study in the next method for this, the individual method. Emphasis is on the subject matter of activity that is introduced, and very little attention paid to the individual. So yes, there is very little attention is given to the individuals, and all the students, all the learners perform in the same way in response to instruction method. So we need a method which gives preference to individual differences. So for this, there is the next method, which is individualized instruction method. So in the previous method, what is the difference between individualized instruction method and between the instruction to response method? In instruction to response method, there was group, and also in the same thing is in the individualized instruction method. The groups are also in the individualized instruction method, but the instructions that are given in individualized instruction method are given on the by keeping in mind the individual differences. For example, if someone is doing padhastasana, so when some people who are beginners, they can't it's difficult for them to touch their feet by keeping their knees straight. So the teacher will give instruction to that person in the group that bend your knees. That would be easy for that person. So in this way, individual differences are taken care in this individual instruction method. Understand? Did you get the difference between these two
Yes,
methods?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Fourth is group discussion method. In group discussion method, the main benefit or the main use of this method is in problem solving. So it has both individual and group value, because group method how group method has individual value, because it results in it's make an individual to express himself or herself in front of the group. uh, a person can individual learns to express herself or himself in front of others, and effectiveness depends upon the teacher's ability to lead the discussion. Next method is directed practice method. Directed practice methods. In directed practice method, teacher gives extra class work to the student. For example, if the teacher told about the Shank Prakshalan Kriya in the yoga class, and the teacher once told and students performed it also. Then after that, for the next time when they have to do it, then and the teacher, no, don't take Sank Prakshalan example, let's take Neti example, because we can do it daily basis, on the in the day, on the daily basis. So teacher gave told about taught about Neti in the class. Then after that, he told students to learn it, to do it out in when to practice it more when they are not in the class, so to gain more perfection in that. In the same way, asanas, for example, teacher taught Shirsasana in the class, and then he tell the student to do it in out of the class also at their home, so that they gain accuracy, they became more perfect in that. Assignments for extra practice of selected yogic practices out of class hours enhance skill and performance levels of the students. Students should be encouraged to do out of class practice, and the teacher may check the results and give additional suggestions for further practice. And in this, the success of this method depends on the relation between student and teacher, and also depends on the motivation, how motivated the students are. If they love what they learn, they will be motivated and they will do the extra class practice, they will study more, or they will do extra practice. And also depends on the relationship between student and teacher. If student respect their teacher, or they like their teacher, they like the way the teacher teaches, then the student will follow that in practice in out of the class also, out of class also. Next is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next is project method. Project method, students put into practice what they have learned in the class. So like we used to prepare projects in the school also. So this is the project, this that was the project method. And preparing models of yogic practices, planned observations of seminars, conferences, competition related to yogic activities, visits to different well-known yoga centers helps in this method. So when we do all these things, that we can better prepare our projects. So in this method, the main point is students put into practice what they have learned. This is the main thing. And then the next method is demonstration method, and the last method. In demonstration method, this is non-competitive type performance. It's not for competition, it's non-competitive, with emphasis on skill and form. So for example, the class is going on, and a teacher said to a student that demonstrate this asana, so that so then the student performs that asana, the student demonstrates this that asana, and other students who are in the class, they are also seeing, they are also observing what their friend is doing. So there are viewers as well as the performer. It's value for both of them. Performer is performing and viewer is observing the performer. So an excellent group method, this is an excellent group method, but what's the disadvantage of this method? That the scope of learning is restricted. What does that mean, that the scope of learning is restricted? Because you're not learning anything new in this, you are only demonstrating what is already being taught in the class. So there is not new knowledge. So this is the disadvantage of demonstration method. You can ask if you have any question, or we move to the next. Should we move?
Do you have questions on these 7 methods, ma'am?
Yesterday, the question that we discussed was from directed practice method. Wait, I will after finishing this, I will show that question. Okay.
Yeah.
Next is the method of teaching should allow for individual differences and stimulate both creativity and independent thinking in the students. Factors influencing the method. The factors that influences the method are content. So content is what we have to teach. So if we have to teach yoga, then we will choose different method, and if we have to teach geography, then we will use different method for teaching. So there are it depends on the content of the teaching, that what we are teaching. Based on the content, method also changes. So this is the factor that influence the method. Second factor that influence is previous background and the experience of the student. For example, there are two students, one is beginner and one is advanced. So teacher should know that who is advanced and who is beginner. If the one there different methods will be used for the one who is a beginner, and other different method would be used by the teacher for the one who have certain level of knowledge. Next is the teacher. Next factor, and the most important factor that influence methods, is teacher, because a teacher is, this is the last point that given, that the person in the teacher is the most important than the method. So teacher is important than the methods. So the first point here is a genuine interest in communication. So if a teacher has no interest in communicating, then how will the teacher communicate his or her knowledge? So communication is important in teaching. Love of the work of teaching, a willingness to share interest and experiences with others, ability to put him or herself in the position of the student, the capacity for understanding expressed in an open, authentic way without blaming or condemning the students. An attractive personality. Why an attractive personality? Because if the teacher's personality is admirable, then students would follow the teacher. The students will uh, respect whatever the teacher says, and their interest in learning will be more. The ability to set a good example through lifestyle and behavior. If uh, if there is a yoga teacher and he follows every his lifestyle is like a yogi, then obviously that yoga teacher would set a good example for others. Next point is a sense of professional responsibility towards the students. It should be the responsibility. Teachers should see their teachers should look at their students as they are responsibility of the teacher. It is their responsibility to teach them. A pleasant yet commanding voice. The voice of the teacher should not be rude. Teacher should have a pleasant voice and yet commanding, but it should not be very much that much pleasant that pleasant, it should be pleasant, but it should also be commanding, so that students follow whatever the teacher says. And next point, the awareness that the person in the teacher is more important than the method. Next slide is, so these are fourth and fifth, facilities. If there are no sufficient facilities available, if we have to do shutcomes and there is no proper facility for doing shutcomes, then what the teacher will do? If a yoga teacher is taking yoga session and the space in the room is not enough for the people who are doing, for the students, then the space is not enough, that this thing will make the teacher more stressed. So this is the factor that also impacts, that also affects methods. And the last is scientific principles. Scientific principle, this includes the physiology, anatomy, muscular coordination, psychology, and other educational principles. These principles also impact the method. So this was our second chapter. If anybody have to ask anything from these, from the second chapter, you can ask. So answer this now. Which of the following is directional method of yoga teaching? Group discussion. We have discussed these methods today. So what should be the answer? Group discussion?
Directional method of yoga teaching might be to direct is lecture only.
No. Wait. Let me show you. See, in directed practice method, this is the directed practice method when uh, teacher give assignments for extra practice. As I gave the example that, for example, if the student learn a particular asana in the class, then the teacher asks the student to perform it, to practice it more out of the class, so that the student get perfection over that asana. So this comes under in directed practice method. Remember this word, practice. Directed practice method. Okay, so what are the 7 basic methods that we studied? Anybody?
Lecture, recitation, project, laboratory, dramatic, group discussion were the classroom methods, and the 7 basic methods of teaching were lecture, response to instruction, individualized instruction method, group discussion, directed practice, project, and demonstration.
Okay. And tell me more about demonstration method.
It's a non-competitive type of method where the emphasis is laid on the skill and the form. Here, both there's a value for both the performer and also the viewer. It's a good, excellent group method, and the disadvantage is the scope of learning is restricted in this.
Yes. So if the teacher has to give individualized instructions, then which method will be used?
Individualized
Individualized
instruction.
instruction method.
And what happens in individualized instructional method? What is individualized instruction method?
Based on the principle that learning is highly individualized for individual differences within the pattern of the group structure. So here in individualized instruction method, if, for example, though it's a group practice, still if somebody is doing something which is not accurate, then the teacher might point at that particular mistake of that individual and try to correct it.
Okay. What are the 6 factors that are involved in the teaching process, in educational process?
Six factors, ma'am.
Yes. 6 factors or 6 processes.
Teaching, learning, teacher, student, subject of activity, and environment.
Okay. What is the purpose of teaching?
Purpose of the teaching is to induce a change in the student.
Okay. So that's all for today.